your day is by swapping out certain ingredients for healthier options. And often those ingredients include fewer calories, less fat, less salt, and less sugar. So in this webinar, you'll learn how these simple swaps can help you eat healthier without sacrificing the flavor. And I thought, since it was about to be, the holidays are approaching, so I figured that this topic was kind of really pertinent. So I'm not sure how many of you cook for Thanksgiving or the holidays, but either way, I hope this helps. So the goal of this webinar is to help guide you to make healthier swaps while keeping the flavor of your food. We'll talk about each food group and ways to make healthier choices in each one. And then we'll talk about some healthy baking swaps. And again, we'll leave some time at the end for a Q&A. But before we start, I want to do a little quiz. Actually, can you see the answers here?
Oh yeah.
Okay, well that didn't work out as planned. Anyway, we'll talk about each of these. It was supposed to zoom in, come in as I clicked, but that's okay. So it is true that most recipes can be made healthier without changing the taste or texture of the food. And to reduce the total calories in baked goods, you should cut the sugar amount to 1/3 to 1/2. As you can see, these were supposed to be true or false, so you're supposed to be guessing.
Yeah.
Does anyone see anything on here that they thought would be true that is false, or vice versa?
Wait a minute. I don't know about the canola oil.
Okay. Yep. And then actually doubling the recipes. A lot of people, I feel like they think that just to double the recipe, they measure the ingredients, they double the ingredients. So, and then finally, enhancing the flavor of your meals. You can substitute dried herbs for fresh herbs in equal amounts. And that is also false.
Oh no, that would be wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know
So
that one's wrong. I would not use canola oil, but anyway.
Yeah. So, well, at least even though the little transition didn't work as planned, at least you found out some things. So prioritizing nutrition shouldn't mean you have to sacrifice taste, right? So by making small, simple changes to your overall eating pattern, you can help you and your family stay healthy. By preparing a recipe in a different way or by substituting ingredients, a recipe can be made healthier. They can be altered to reduce or eliminate fat, salt, and sugar. And alternatively, fiber can be added to make recipes healthier. But when you're modifying a recipe, it's best to make one modification at a time. So for example, start by reducing or increasing the amount of an ingredient. And then the next time you make that recipe, you can make an additional adjustment if there's something else that you wanted to try.
Yeah.
But baking especially requires careful adjustments, right? So each ingredient plays a huge role in how that item turns out. In baked goods, we have fat that adds flavor, richness, and texture, and it also makes food smooth and creamy. And eggs provide the structure, acting as thickeners and add volume to food. And then sugar is used to enhance the flavor, increase the tenderness, and also acts as a preservative. And salt also provides flavor, reduces the action of yeast, and also acts as a preservative. So making little modifications to these things can, either be a really, good thing, or, adding too much can be bad. So that's why you want to make one adjustment at a time. So like I said earlier, before we get into making the swaps, it's important to understand and have a general knowledge about what's recommended for each food group. So that's what we're going to talk about next. And then at the end of each slide for that food group, I'll provide it like a simple swap that you can make. So the first one is fruits and vegetables. But before we do that, has anyone ever heard of My Plate?
Yes.
No. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, great. So if you remember the food pyramid, this is what took its place. So most adults need to eat more fruits or vegetables. According to the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, almost 90% of the U.S. population does not meet the recommended allowance for vegetables, and about 80% of the population does not meet the fruit recommendations. And including fruits and vegetables as part of your overall diet may lower your risk for heart attack and stroke, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and may protect against certain cancers. These foods are low in fat, sodium, and calories, and they contain essential nutrients like folate, magnesium, potassium, fiber, and vitamins like A, C, and K. So has anyone ever heard of Eat the Rainbow or fill your plate with color?
Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so that's going to come to play here. So you want to try to fill half your plate with fruits and vegetables. And this can include fresh, canned, dried, and also frozen options. And fruits and vegetables, they're measured in cups. So for vegetables specifically, the recommended amount is 2 to 3 cups a day. And for fruit, it's 1.5 to 2 cups. So when I say cups, you might be thinking, well, what counts as a cup? So I provided a few examples of what counts as a cup. So 1 cup of fresh or frozen fruit, like fresh strawberries, fresh blueberries, 1/2 cup of dried fruit, and 1 cup of 100% fruit juice. So with fruit juice, you want to make sure it's the 100% fruit juice, right? And then whole fruits, like 1 small banana or 1 large, I'm sorry, 1 small apple or 1 large banana. And like I said, when it comes to choosing fruits, choosing those that are lower in added sugar. If you prefer dried fruit, you want to look for the no added sugar options, maybe like with raisins or apricots, even no sugar added mango. And then for vegetables, also choosing fresh, frozen, canned, or dried, but aiming for those colors like the dark green, dark leafy greens, your red and orange bell peppers, beans and peas and lentils, and then choosing options that are lower in sodium for canned foods. And also for the reduced sodium, did anyone know that if you drain and rinse, you can actually reduce the sodium content by 36% after you drain them?
That's interesting. I always do that, but now I buy no sodium.
Yeah.
Like no sodium bush black beans,
Yeah. I've never tried it myself, but after draining, if you rinse the product, it actually, yeah, 40,
less.
yeah.
That's cool to know.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad you're finding something new here. And then when it comes to the canned fruits, choosing those that are in 100% juice or light syrup. You see the ones that are in heavy syrup. You want to go for the ones that are in the 100% juice or light syrup. So my suggestion for this food category, the simple swap, may be adding fruits and veggies to meals that you're already making.
Yeah.
So for example, like the oatmeal that you eat in the morning, maybe topping it with some strawberries or blueberries and a banana, or maybe like trying to pair creamy and cooked with crunchy and raw. So like the breakfast wrap that you might make, choosing a whole grain tortilla and topping it with cooked spinach, red bell peppers, and onions. To me, that sounds pretty good. Does anyone have any thoughts about what you're currently eating now that you could add a fruit or vegetable to?
I always add, if we're using a canned soup, for example, and I try to buy the things that are lower in sodium, but I put more vegetables in. I just load it up with my own vegetables, fresh usually.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And you get more out of the can. It says 2 servings, but it's kind of lean servings until you throw the vegetables in there.
It is, right?
Yeah.
I know I've bought even the bags of dried fruit before, and you open the bag and it's like half empty. And those things can really be expensive sometimes. So I love that idea. All right, next we'll move on to grains. So a grain product is any food that's made from wheat, rice, oats, cornmeal, barley, or any other cereal grain. So this includes breads, pastas, breakfast cereals, even grits, tortillas, popcorn, rice, and oatmeal. And there are two types of grains. So there's whole grains, like whole grain flour, whole grain oats, brown rice. And these are whole grains because they contain the entire grain kernel. So they contain the bran, which contains the nutrients like fiber and B vitamins. Then there's the germ, and that contains the antioxidants like vitamin E, and it contains some B vitamins. And then there's the endosperm, which contains the carbs and proteins. So the second kind is refined grains. I'm not sure if you've heard of simple and complex carbohydrates, but that's kind of what this is. So your refined grains are those that have been processed to remove the bran and the germ. So remember, the bran contains the nutrients like the fiber and B vitamins, and the germ is the part that contains the antioxidants and B vitamins. And the germ also gives, or this process gives the grains a finer texture, and that improves and extends their shelf life. But it also removes the nutrients like fiber, iron, and B vitamins. So it's important to choose the enriched versions of the refined grains because some of those vitamins and iron have been added back, but you want to make sure that you're choosing the enriched version of the refined grain. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes. So how do you find out if it's the enriched version? Where do you look?
Gorilla.
You want to check the ingredient list, right? So you want to look for products that have the words whole grain or 100% whole grain. Either the stamp or any products that list terms such as the whole grain wheat at the top of the ingredient list. So the first ingredient is going to be the ingredient that's in there the most, followed, then less and less and less. So you want the first ingredient to be whole grain. And as Americans, most of us eat enough total grains. However, it's few of us that eat enough whole grains. So we want to aim to make at least half of our grains whole grains. These grains have been shown to help reduce risk for heart disease, stroke, cancer, diabetes, and obesity. And like fruits and vegetables are measured in cups, right? So grains we measure in ounces. So what counts as an ounce? That's 1 slice of bread, 1 cup of ready-to-eat cereal, half a cup of cooked rice, cooked pasta, or cooked cereal. Not sure how many people enjoy couscous, but a half a cup of cooked couscous, 5 whole wheat crackers, and 1 small flour tortilla are just a few examples. And I'm going to provide some resources at the end of the presentation that you can link to find out more information about these individual food groups.
Okay.
But my simple swap here is just to try swapping your normal grains for the whole grain version. So if you're eating pasta, maybe choosing the whole grain pasta. I know last night I made spaghetti, but I made turkey spaghetti instead of using the ground beef. And guess what? My child did not say a word because it really does not taste that different. And it's just, I know when my husband cleans his plate and goes back for more that he likes it. Otherwise, he's usually like, okay, you can scratch this one off your list, because he didn't really like it that much. But it was actually really good. And it was barely even noticed the taste difference. So anyone have any suggestions for how they can improve their grains here?
My grandchildren love chocolate chip cookies.
Mm-hmm.
I put about 25% of whole wheat flour in my chocolate chip cookies. And this grandma makes the best chocolate chip cookies. That's the announcement that was made. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
I also cut the sugar, but I just think that I use one, it's organic, it's from Homestead, Gristmill.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And it's really got a flavor to it. I think that's what they taste.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Start them young, right?
They don't even know. They don't know.
That's right. I know. Yeah. All right, and then moving on to the protein group. So proteins provide our body with various nutrients that are designed to keep our body functioning and maintaining its health. So it's the building block of our muscles and bones, and it's vital for the structure and function of our tissues and organs. Some sources of protein include lean meats, poultry, and eggs, seafood, beans, peas, and lentils, and then nuts, seeds, and soy products. And the nutrients that are provided by these various protein foods can differ, but they include, of course, protein, B vitamins, which promote tissue growth and red blood cell production, iron, which can prevent anemia, zinc, which supports your immune system, magnesium, which helps build our bones and supports muscle function, and then also EPA and DHA, which are omega-3 fatty acids, and they vary in amounts of seafood. So it's important to eat a variety of protein foods to help our bodies get the nutrients that it needs. So when it comes to choosing the protein sources, you want to choose lean or low fat meat and poultry choices. So for example, like your 93% lean ground beef, or ground turkey, or pork loin and skinless chicken breast. And it's the meats, the processed meats like hot dogs, sausage, and things like that you should try to limit and choose more of the lean or low fat sources. And again, as adults, just like I was saying with the fruits and vegetables, or the whole grains, I'm sorry, we eat enough meat and poultry and eggs, but we tend to fall short on the seafood and the beans and the peas and the lentils. And some people may not realize that those are good sources of protein. So when it comes to choosing seafood, you want to choose options that are higher in omega-3s and lower in mercury, like salmon and trout. And it's recommended consuming about 8 ounces of seafood a week to help reduce heart risk. It may help reduce heart disease risk. Do many of you eat a lot of seafood? I know I don't cook a lot. Occasionally I'll do some shrimp, but my family's not big fish eaters. Maybe if I'm at the beach or something, I might order some grilled tilapia or something like that. But outside of that, I know that's something I could probably work on. Does anyone else eat a lot of seafood?
I do.
I wouldn't say a lot, but we eat shrimp and crab cakes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And there's some really good catfish out there. Well, we're in North Carolina, so we have North Carolina catfish, it's farm raised, but it's they're bottom fed catfish. And so they eat better. No, I mean, they're top fed. When they raise them to eat from the top, and so they control the food they eat. And
Right.
you can get that at Whole Foods, or it's really good.
Oh, that's a great suggestion. I'll have to try that. Yeah, I'm in Nashville, or a little bit south of Nashville, so
Still not that far though.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're vegetarian or vegan, obviously the advice to eat meat, poultry, and seafood won't apply to you, but there are protein options for vegetarians, like the beans and peas, lentils, nuts, seeds, and soy products. But even if you aren't vegetarian, it's still important to choose a variety of the protein sources, including those vegetarian sources.
Yeah, that would be something I'd have to work on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to measuring protein, we measure it in ounces. And I've kind of listed out a few things that count as 1 ounce. So 1 ounce of meat, poultry or fish, 1/4 cup of cooked beans, 1 egg, 1 tablespoon of peanut butter, or 1 ounce of nuts or seeds. And here, the simple swap I suggested was maybe just to increase the variety of your protein. So maybe swapping one of your regular protein sources for a different source. So I know I could definitely work on the seafood, incorporating a little bit more, but also I feel like I could do better with my beans and incorporating more of those into our recipes.
Because the protein is still not as great ounce per ounce as meat is, right? I mean, you're not going to get a high very high protein count.
Well, it depends on what kind of meat. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, and the link that I'm going to send to you all at the end there, it's from my plate, but if you click on each food group, it shows you a table of all. It's amazing. I wish I could take the time to share it, but it's, yeah, it goes into so much detail about
That's good.
every single food. Yeah. So, after the presentation, if you look at it, you have questions, feel free to email me. And if I don't know the answer, I can reach out to one of the dietitians, and get that answer for you.
Mhm.
But moving on to fats, which, while fat is not technically a food group, it is a macronutrient that can be found in many of the food groups. And it's not pictured in the MyPlate image, but because it's such an important nutrient in our diet, I wanted to briefly touch on it. It provides energy, it protects our internal organs, it regulates body temperature, and we all need fat in our diet, right? But when it comes to fats, it's all about choosing the right kind of fats. Sometimes you hear, oh no, it's fat, we don't want to eat it, but it's all about choosing the healthy fats. So the monounsaturated fat and polyunsaturated fats are very good fats. So they lower our bad cholesterol, and they can be found in oils like canola, olive, and peanut. They can also be found in avocados. Polyunsaturated fats are good. They help to lower our LDL and increase our HDL, which is our good cholesterol. They can be found in safflower oil, sesame oil, corn oil, and sunflower oils, and it can also be found in nuts and seeds. They contain omega-3 fatty acids, and they're found in salmon, mackerel, herring, trout, flaxseed, and walnuts too. And then you've heard of the saturated and trans fats. So these are the solid fats, right? These are the fats that when we eat too much of them, they can increase our bad cholesterol, so our LDL, and raise the risk for heart disease and stroke. And they can be found in high fat meats, whole milk products, whole milk cheeses, and butter. And then the trans fats, we want to, everything in moderation, right? But trying to work on keeping the intake of your trans fats as low as you can. These are found in, the cookies, crackers, cakes, French fries, donuts, partially hydrogenated oils. So you can, maybe focus on making one simple change at a time, like I was talking about earlier. So some simple swaps here are using the fat-free milk instead of whole milk, choosing non-tropical vegetable oils for cooking, fat-free plain yogurt in place of sour cream, applesauce this is one I found that I'd like to try, is the applesauce for 1/2 of the butter or margarine in cookies or cakes. Again, it's all about trial and error, I'm sure. I don't bake a lot personally, but I know there's a lot of people that do. So anyone have suggestions here for what they might try to focus on or implement? Okay, so we'll move on to another thing I also forgot to mention is the cooking methods that you use. So baking and boiling and broiling and grilling and roasting instead of cooking the foods and instead of frying the foods. We do a lot of baking and grilling here, also roasting as well. So
Yeah.
Next is oils. So you can cut down on the saturated and trans fats when cooking by choosing the non-tropical vegetable oils, which I just suggested, instead of using the solid fats like the butter, shortening, lard, and even the hard stick margarine. And then choosing the non-tropical over the tropical oils like the palm and coconut oil. So common cooking oils that contain more of the better for you fats, I guess you could say, are the canola, corn, olive, peanut, safflower, soybean, and sunflower. But oils can also be found in foods like avocados, nuts, seafood, and seeds. So, and you can see here, the first bullet, they do contain a high percentage of the good fats, good fatty acids. So, I know you said that you wouldn't use coconut oil, but has anyone ever tried any of the other like safflower or sunflower oils?
Yes. Right now, I use avocado oil often because the stove, we have a new electric stove. We used to have gas, and it's too hot. The olive oil burns, but the avocado oil has a higher temperature before it burns.
Right. The smoke.
So, and I don't taste it. I don't find that it interferes with the taste of the food at all.
Oh, that's great. Great to know.
It's expensive, but just try to use sparingly if I can.
Yes. Yes. Great. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Next is salt or sodium. And salt, it's hidden in many of our foods, right? And it's linked to hypertension or high blood pressure, heart disease, and stroke. And the daily recommendation is less than 2,300 milligrams a day. So that's equivalent to about 1 teaspoon. Of course, if you have high blood pressure, you always talk to your doctor. You may need to limit your sodium even more. But I wanted to share that the average intake of sodium is 3,393 milligrams per day. That's quite a bit over the recommended limit. It's found in almost all processed and prepared foods that we buy, like the ready-to-eat meals, and then even at even in our restaurant meals. It's found in popular foods like sandwiches, tacos, burgers, pizzas, pastas, soups. And a lot of that sodium comes from the ingredients, like in a sandwich, for example. Think about you're layering just the meat, any sausage or pepperoni, and then topping it with cheese, and then topping it with bread. So a lot of people might not think about it when it comes to like club sandwiches. Actually, I think the dietary guidelines said that the average club sandwich contains over 1,200 milligrams of sodium. And that's crazy. And it's also found in sauces and dressings, and then your instant flavored foods like flavored rice and pasta. So like your ramen noodles, for example. So together, just think about all of that the next time that you place a order at a restaurant. But there are some things that you can do to lower your sodium intake. And the good news is that you don't have to give up all of your favorite foods. So one strategy is to cook at home more often. Like I said, most of the sodium in our diets comes from the salt that's added during food processing and preparation. And it's found in all those ready-to-eat meals and the restaurant meals. But when you're at home and you're cooking, you are in control of what goes into your recipes, right? So you get to choose those ingredients that are lower in sodium. You can also taste your food first. Many of us automatically add salt to our foods, right? So we automatically go for that salt shaker even before we taste it. So instead, maybe taste your food first to see if it really needs that extra shake. You can use spices and herbs to flavor food. Does anyone use anything that they like? Any spices or herbs to flavor their food? I don't use anything too extravagant here. But when it comes to buying foods, choosing the less sodium, reduced sodium, no salt added. I know you said that you choose to buy the no salt added beans. So that's great. Even there's no salt, low salt tomatoes. And if you can't find a low sodium or no salt added version, again, draining it, rinsing in a colander under water, draining it will help wash away some of that salt.
There's a brand called POM, P-O-M.
I've never heard of that.
It comes in a box. It's all tomatoes, all different, chopped tomatoes, plum tomatoes, whatever you want. They come from Italy, but there's no salt in there, none.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and it's really, I made chili with it this week. It's very good. POM.
It's great to know. Thank you. And then limiting your consumption of salty processed meats like salami and bacon. And again, the salty flavored instant pasta or noodles. Instead, maybe snack on crunchy veggies or unsalted nuts instead of like your salted chips. And then in addition, limiting your use of the soy sauce, tomato sauce, and other processed sauces, and salad dressings, things like that.
Mhm.
And my simple swap here is maybe just try to cook at home one more night a week than what you're currently doing. So I know it's not feasible for everyone's schedule all the time, but if you cook in, or if you go out to eat 3 nights a week, maybe cut that back to twice and try to cook at home if you can. Maybe even just prepare ahead of time so that it's easy to make that switch. Does anyone have any suggestions on this slide?
There's another little trick, and I learned that if you know, when you're making marinara sauce, but you're using canned sauce, like I use pizza sauce, and for some reason, pizza sauce has less sodium in it than all the other red sauces. So, I mean, it comes in a smaller container. So then I might use pizza sauce with the palm, but you're still going to get that marinara flavor to it,
Right.
with a lot less sodium.
Great to know.
It's way down. It's like 12% or something. And I've got some. I'll see if I'll do it while you're talking. I'll go. I can tell you the amount of sodium in there. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I've been missing some of these comments in the chat. Beverly says she lives at the beach, so she eats a lot of seafood. That's awesome. Oh, living at the beach. We go to the beach quite a bit, but don't live there. Josie Ann said she doesn't cook it much, but she tries to choose that from the menu when she's out. This is talking about seafood. Barbara says salmon, steaks, or fillets. Josie Ann, thank you for the salmon. It's very easy to cook. I see people get it all the time at the grocery, and I just can't. I'm like, I'll mess it up. I know I will, because I feel like they're very thin fillets. So, but maybe that's something I could try because it's not very fishy. I don't feel like, or maybe it is. Maybe I'm thinking of something different. But all right, let's move on to added sugars next. So it's important to avoid or limit foods and drinks that are higher in added sugars. So if you have a lot of added sugars in your diet, it's hard to get all the nutrients you need without also getting too many calories. And sometimes that can make it hard to even stay at a healthy weight. So added sugars include sugars that are added to foods and drinks, and foods packaged as sweeteners such as table sugar, syrups, and honey. Added sugars are found in drinks like regular soda, sweetened coffee, sweetened tea, and fruit drinks that aren't 100% juice. They're also found in energy drinks and flavored milk. They're found in sweet treats like cookies, cake, ice cream, donuts, candy, all the fun stuff, right? Granola bars, flavored yogurt, and even mini breakfast cereals. And the sugars that are found in fruits, 100% fruit juice, plain milk, and plain yogurt, these sugars are not added sugars. So these are the foods that have the sugars naturally. And most of the time, you want to try to choose whole fruits instead of juice. But if you do drink the juice, like I've said over and over, choose the 100% fruit juice. And, you know, again, it's all about making a small change at a time. But the sugar adds the sweetness and the calories without adding the essential nutrients. And that can really impact our ability to meet the nutrient guidelines without exceeding our calorie limits, right? So just focusing on making those small little changes. And now, today, you can actually tell on the food label where the added sugars are. So if you see on this slide, you can see that they've included the added sugars amount. So you want to aim for less than 50 grams a day. And you can check the nutrition facts label to see if foods are low or high in added sugars and drinks, I should say. And you really want to focus on looking at the percent daily value, which is up here on the right. And anything that is 5% or less is considered a low source. And anything that's 20% or higher is considered a higher source. So aiming for that, goal of 50 grams or even less a day. So some small changes that you can make, some small, simple swaps. If you're someone who drinks regular soda, maybe you try drinking water or sparkling water or unsweetened tea instead. Maybe substituting that sugary cereal with some plain oatmeal or yogurt with fruit. And this, again, doesn't have to be something you do every day, just making the small change. Using up to a third less sugar in some recipes. And then replacing canned fruit that's packed in the heavy syrup with fresh fruit, or choose the kind that's packed in water. And then adding cinnamon or vanilla in place of sugar to get that sweetness. Anyone have suggestions here or any comments? And again, at the end, there's going to be a link to the dietary guidelines as well. And so that will have all the recommended levels for all the food groups. All right. So like I said, now you can see on the food label, you can see where the added sugars are. But let's just quickly talk about what is contained in the food label. Does everyone read the food labels, or how do you use the food label?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So yeah, learning how to understand and use it can really help you make more informed, healthier choices, and then help you identify nutrient-dense foods to include into your overall healthy eating pattern. So the American Heart Association has some tips for making the most of the information on the food labels. And I've already talked about the percent daily value. So again, 5% or less is a low source of the nutrient, and 20% or more is the higher source. But you want to start with the serving information. What's the serving size and how many servings are in the package? Then you want to check the total calories per serving. So doing just some simple math can tell you how many calories you're consuming if you eat just one serving, or if you're eating the whole package. Limiting certain nutrients. So the number 3, you can see the total fat, which again, we talked about, not all fats are bad. And then also noting that the total sugars can include both natural and added sugars. And so just really focusing on limiting the amounts of the added sugars, also the saturated fats and sodium, and then the trans fat. So you can use the labels to compare them on different brands or similar products, and then use that to make the best choice for you. I also put a link here to an interactive nutrition facts label. Again, I wish I had the time to go into, to actually show you, but that will also be at the end of the presentation. So you should check that out. It's pretty cool. And then, making sure that you eat foods with nutrients that your body needs, like the calcium, the dietary fiber, iron, potassium, and your vitamins like A, C, D, and E. And then again, the ingredient list can also be a helpful tool. And as I mentioned before, it shows each ingredient in a food by its common or usual name, and they're listed in descending order by weight. So the ingredient that weighs the most in the product is listed first, and then the ingredient that weighs the least is listed last. Next is fiber. According to the dietary guidelines for Americans, more than 90% of women and 97% of men do not meet the recommended intakes for dietary fiber. So to add fiber, or some simple swaps, maybe you can use brown rice instead of white rice. whole grain pasta instead of regular pasta. Substitute all-purpose flour with whole wheat flour, like you mentioned, I think, Barbara. Or is that right? What?
Maggie.
Maggie, yes. Margaret, okay, yes. And then adding beans to your soups, casseroles, and salads. So those seem to be pretty simple. Does anyone have any thoughts about what they might try?
I'm gonna try the beans. I've never done that.
Yep.
Beans to soups, casseroles.
And
I
I preferably choose brown rice over white rice. Anyway, the whole grain pasta we've tried. I'll have to try to maybe do half and half one night or something, but they could tell a difference for
That's
sure.
what I do, because they can tell the difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quinoa is good though. I mean, there's some really good quinoa salads. Really
Mhm.
good.
I love couscous. I only get it when we go to this restaurant here in Nashville. It's called Connor's, but my husband will not. If he sees the box in the pantry, he's like, no.
But quinoa.
Yeah.
Do you mean quinoa or do you mean couscous?
No, I was talking about couscous, but
Yeah. Quinoa is
quinoa.
like that too.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about spices really quick. Herbs and spices, they can be used to add delicious flavors, right? Without the need for salt or oil. So you can enhance the flavor of your foods by maybe adding peppers or a dash of hot pepper sauce. You can add some tangy taste with citrus juice or a grated citrus peel like lemon, lime, or orange.
Mhm.
You can add a flavor burst with condiments like horseradish, mustard, wasabi, hummus. And you can also intensify the flavors of your food by using the high heat cooking techniques like the pan searing, the grilling, broiling, but just make sure not to overcook or, of course, char your meat.
Roasting.
Yeah. I love to roast a chicken, actually. It's delicious. But also, I'm not sure if you're familiar with aromatic vegetables, but they have a deep rounded flavor and aroma that's released when they're heated or crushed. So whether it's garlic or onions, chilies or ginger, each vegetable has unique cooking qualities and health benefits. So these are just a few that I've listed here that you can use to create delicious meals to add flavor instead of adding fat, sugar, or salt. You can, the peppers, they can be sweet, hot, dried, or, chopped onion, garlic. I love onion and garlic. I don't use a lot of ginger, but yeah. So moving on to holiday tips or holiday swaps. So a lot of this, I've kind of covered before, but since it's the holidays approaching, you might be cooking. And so here are just a few, ideas. But whether you're cooking or whether you're, going somewhere, you can always lighten up your offerings without sacrificing your taste or your health, right? So using lower sodium vegetable broth in your mashed potatoes, or substituting the applesauce for oil in like your banana bread, or but like I said before, doing a small amount first, making one modification at a time, as some of these things can change the texture of the finished product, right? So for dips and sauces, you can also try using fat-free yogurt in place of sour cream or mayo. And if you top your casseroles or something with fried onion rings, like using something else that's crunchier, that's less, has less fat, could be an option. And then just using reduced fat or fat-free cheeses for your salads and casseroles. Does anyone have any thoughts there? Oh, Sean said panko breadcrumbs. I've never heard of Did you mean panko?
Panko flakes?
Yes. Okay. Yes, I use those. I also use Italian bread. I use Italian breadcrumbs. Plain breadcrumbs, I'm not.
I think they actually have Italian panko flakes, believe it or
Oh,
not.
they do? Oh,
Wait a minute, I'll look.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
And then just, again, this is just like kind of like a summary slides, but we've already touched on like reducing the amount of fat and sugar without losing the flavor, right? So swapping out ingredients, you can also change the method of preparation, and then also reducing your portion sizes. And then finally, just the healthy cooking techniques. Changing the cooking method can give your food a completely different flavor and texture. You can saute it for fast flavor. Sauteing might sound fancy, but all it takes is a hot pan and some oil, right? So you can saute vegetables like spinach, bell peppers, onions, zucchini, and protein foods like eggs, chopped chicken, and even tofu. You want to make sure that, of course, your pan is hot enough. So to check to see if it's hot enough, you just add a piece of chopped food and see if it sizzles right away. And that's your sure sign that your pan's hot and ready. And then roasting, you can roast food for deep flavor and color. And the roasting browns the surface of food with the high heat of the oven. So I roast broccoli all the time. My husband and son, unfortunately, will not eat Brussels sprouts. I do asparagus occasionally, but you can also roast chicken, as we mentioned, and tofu as well. Does anyone roast anything different?
Yes, radishes.
Oh,
They're delicious.
never tried that.
I never did either. Till we have a CSA now. You must try things.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And then steaming keeps your food moist. So that just cooks food over a pan of boiling water. And the food doesn't touch the water. Instead, it's cooked by the steam that comes off the hot water. So you can't go wrong with adding chopped fresh herbs, olive oil, or even a squeeze of lemon juice to your veggies. My 10-year-old son loves plain steamed broccoli. How crazy is that? And then you can even steam it in the microwave. Broccoli, sweet potatoes, carrots, peas. And then braising, broiling, and grilling are other healthy cooking techniques. And then, of course, you want to avoid overcooking because that changes the color, the texture of your food, and oftentimes it's not in a good way, right? So broccoli tends to turn a dull green, and rice can turn to mush. So if you have to set a timer, sometimes we get distracted doing a million things in the kitchen. So if you're doing more than one thing, you might want to set a timer to help you stay on track. And then finding recipes that can help you understand different cooking times for different foods. And then serving vegetables and fruits raw. Cucumbers, even bell peppers, apples, bananas. You can chop them up in a fancy way, slice carrots and cucumbers into spears or bell peppers into rings, all kinds of things. So these are just a few of those few suggestions. So, and then to wrap it up, just a few other things to keep in mind. Practice mindful eating, take time out to enjoy the eating, take away, the screens, the devices from other distractions, and really enjoy this time with family, friends, loved ones. And plus, you're less likely to overeat if you eat slowly and savor every bite. And remember that small changes really can make a big impact. Making the small gradual changes and adjustments will help you, adopt that healthier eating, those healthier eating habits. So, and then watching your portion sizes, that's always important. And as we have found out, ingredients matter. So, using those ingredients for a more flavorful product to help, satisfy your taste buds or cravings. But that wraps up the content portion. Does anyone have any questions? Cynthia, will we be able to see the great? Yes, I will be able to capture, I believe I can capture the chat comments. I'll check on that and get back. And then you'll be getting the recording to the link to the recording.
Okay,
Yeah, so these are some of the additional resources.
I need that.
Yeah, the myplate.gov is just fantastic.
Okay.
And
Can we take a
also-
picture of this? Can you leave that on for a second?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. And then let me see. Yeah, I can't access it.
Okay, hold on. Got it, thanks. All
Sure.
right.
I'm glad that you all found it helpful.
Yeah.
Oh, is everyone good?
Yes.
I hit click. Okay. So hopefully that you learned that you don't have to, overhaul your whole diet to eat healthier. Just making these few simple tweaks can really help. And I hope that you learn that most recipes can be made healthier without changing the taste or the texture of the food. So I hope you all learned something and were able to take something away. And I really appreciate your time. And I want to thank HealthTrust for giving me the opportunity to share this information with you today. So I hope it was
Okay.
helpful.